your host, John Light. I'm also the CEO and founder of Sabretooth Recruiting. And the C-Suite Edge is on something of this eclectic journey where I get to talk with a lot of very engaged and smart people, and most all of whom have a mission that they believe in. And today, I'm fortunate to have Tom Eggert with me, who is on such a mission. Tom, thanks so much for joining me today.
John, thank you for having me and for giving me the opportunity to talk about something that I'm really passionate about.
Well, and just, I'm not going to preamble this or anything, but I mean, we're going to talk today about the work you're doing in the space of microfinance, and I think a lot of people, at least here in the United States, we kind of sit back and we don't think of what real poverty is, because it's not just money. It's a poverty of opportunity. It's a poverty of platform. It's a poverty of food supply. It's a poverty of, housing. You can go right down the line. And the United States overall is just incredibly fortunate, incredibly blessed. But I know what you do, you're reaching out and working with people who otherwise would not have the ability to climb the hill that's in front of them. So can you share with us, to get started, kind of like a 90-second rundown of your background as a business professor, but also what led you into the space of microfinance, and a little bit about WorldWise and where it's going?
Sure. So we started 15 years ago as a I didn't intend to start a nonprofit. I had a student from Haiti in my class at the University of Wisconsin in fall semester. He went home for Christmas break, ended up being on the last flight out of Haiti before the earthquake in January of 2010. It was a big natural disaster in the U.S. Haiti's close. It was the first natural disaster we could donate to the Red Cross on our phones. Just kind of dating ourselves at this point, because we just expect that that's what we can do now. And the class, because Jurgen sat there with us, they wanted to do something. Everybody was wanting to do something for Haiti at that point. So the class raised $3,000. We wanted to give it to a group that was helping people get back on their feet. There were 300,000 people killed, tens of millions of dollars worth of property damage. So there were a lot of people that had nobody to work for. Their jobs just didn't exist. The buildings that they worked in didn't exist. And so they needed to get something to get back on their feet. We weren't doing food, water, shelter, medicine. That was being taken care of by everybody else. We were just trying to find a group that was supporting individuals. And we looked from the U.S., Jurgen's parents looked from Haiti, and we just couldn't identify anybody that was doing what we thought was really important work. And so we approached Jurgen's former pastor, who had started an economic development nonprofit, and laid out the design for a microfinance program based on Mohammed Yunus and the Grameen Bank, and asked if they would implement a program. And their response was, "We've never done anything like this before, but if you tell us what to do, we could give it a go." And so they did. And we sent that $3,000 down, and they made about $50, $60 loans. And lo and behold, 6 months later, all of those loans have been repaid. So what was the secret?
100%.
100%.
Wow.
The secret to getting those loans repaid was the model from the Grameen Bank, which said, primarily target women. 80% of our loans go to women. Very low interest rates, 1% per month for the life of the loan. And always the loan recipients needed to be in groups. And the groups could be 6, 7, 8, or more people. And everyone in that group knows they are not getting another loan until everyone in the group has paid back their previous loan. So even if it was a bad business idea, there were health issues, the incentive for the other loan recipients was to help the person that was having trouble paying back their loan get that loan paid back, so that they then had access to another round of lending. So we learned a lot from that first attempt. We've been active in Haiti for 15 years. We've added the Dominican Republic, the Philippines, and more recently 3 countries in Africa, in Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda, to the work that we're doing.
So you're telling me, and this is what's mind-blowing, right? Not only is there 100% repayment, but you're talking about loans that are 50, 60, maybe $100 to start. We're not talking about
Right.
massive amounts of money. And that's what these people need, and accountability. When you start talking about these small groups, I think implicit in that is we have an accountability one to another, to help each other, support each other. And I'm not saying do the work for the other person, but I am saying there's an accountability factor. Oh man, Fred is busting his tail. I better step it up.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that, we're big believers in capitalism, right? That
Mm-hmm.
if we can help these people just by giving them access to capital, they can lift their families out of poverty. This isn't an aid kind of thing. We're not giving
Right.
them money. We're giving them the ability to do something that they think they could do: start a small store, buy small animals, grow them into big
Mm-hmm.
animals, plant some crops, sew some clothes. These are entry level kinds of things. This is not
Right.
starting a big business, but these are people that are so dedicated to trying to improve the quality of life of their families that they'll take whatever is offered to them. And in the
Mm-hmm.
past, there was nothing offered. There was no source of funding that could allow them to buy that first inventory that they could sell them, or
Yeah.
whatever. And so, as much as I think aid plays an important role in times of natural disaster, aid
Mm-hmm.
actually does a disservice to the people that receive it continuously, because it decreases the drive to do something to get ahead. And so what we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do is feed that drive, is enable those people to take responsibility for their lives. And when you give them that opportunity, they do great things.
Well, I mean, you take a $50 or $100 loan and you turn it into a business that employs 3 or 4 or 5 people and supports your family and gives into the economy. That has a cascade effect.
Correct.
And it's one of those things, and we saw it in the United States. I think if you look back economically and when we transitioned from an agrarian, agricultural based economy into manufacturing with the Industrial Revolution, you could see things take off. It happened really slow at first, and then it just enough energy and momentum get built up to it that it takes off. And it's ironic that we look at the economy today and we don't always think about it in those terms here in the United States.
Right.
That yes, we're a consumer economy, but we're a consumer economy because we've gone through this process and enabled people to do it. And the more people who build these businesses in these countries, and to your point, it's not because they're lazy. It's not because they're unintelligent. It's not because they don't have great ideas. It's not because they don't have the drive or discipline or anything else. It's a true poverty in that there's no stepstone or stepping stone to opportunity
Right.
because resources just aren't there. And we have a friend who is in South Africa, and he does preaching work, evangelical work in Zimbabwe, which is extremely dangerous, and next door to that, and a couple other countries. But it's amazing when you think if these folks in those areas don't get rain at a certain time of the year, they starve. And it's not because they don't work, because they will work their tails off to not starve, but there's just nothing to lever to grow there, beyond where they're at. So I think it's amazing to hand someone not just an opportunity, but kind of the keys.
Yeah.
Here's how you go about it. This is what makes the engine work. It's a known process. Let's give you the ability to enter into that process, engage, and deliver something positive for yourself, your family, and your economy, your community. I
Yeah.
think it's pretty stellar. I usually ask people, I say, hey, what's the biggest problem you solve? But I think it's pretty self-evident, that you're going in and filling a gap for
Yeah.
these people, where there's no other solution because aid won't fill the gap. Resources without accountability, without responsibility for them, isn't really aligned with human nature, I don't
Right.
believe. So I mean, kudos to you guys.
Yeah.
But I want to hear more about the mechanism, Tom. And I'm using the term mechanism because I don't know how else to describe it. That this levers to help people succeed. It's one thing, people may get the impression, oh, well, they're giving them some money, but then they're sitting over them with a carrot or a stick. to keep things going. Well, it's such a small amount of money. Why don't you just forgive it and move on? But if you do, you lose something in the process. And maybe you can expound on that a little bit about this mechanism, whether it's
Sure.
a character thing or a social thing that drives such a fantastic, ridiculously high repayment rate.
So part of it is our focus is on the individual. So we focus on individuals, generally women in families that desperately want to lift their families out of poverty, with whatever that might mean. Might mean the kids going
Right.
to school, it might be addressing health issues, it might just simply be eating better. But moms are universal in they want to take care of their families. And
Mm-hmm.
so we empower individuals, we empower these women, but sort of the outflow of that, the consequence of that is that we actually make a difference in the community also. As you mentioned before, as these women grow a business, they bring a part-time assistant on. So somebody else from
Mm-hmm.
the community now is being paid as a result of the loan that we made. And then that might grow into some full-time employees. And then it might grow into another location. And so we see community development happening, even though that
Mm-hmm.
is not what we're focused on at all. We're focused on the individual and how do we help and support the individual in making a difference in
Mm-hmm.
the lives of their families.
No, I mean your community's made up of individuals, right? And
Correct.
the
Right.
stronger you make individuals, in theory, the stronger you make everything around them.
Right. But it's a
You know,
different
it,
on community development than let's
mm-hmm.
let's invest in the community, let's create infrastructure, and then
Mm-hmm.
the community will grow around that infrastructure. Our focus is quite different, and we work with a variety of partners. We're
Mm-hmm.
working with credit unions in the Philippines. We're working with foundations in the Dominican Republic. We're working with an agricultural co-op in Haiti. We're working with actually a business in Kenya. We're
Mm-hmm.
working with a foundation in Ghana, and we're working with another business in Uganda. So our partners come in all different types and flavors. Um, what unites them is they're committed to working within their country to lift the poor or help the poor lift themselves out of poverty. And our loan program is simply a tool that adds on to
Mm-hmm.
the great work that's already happening with these partners.
I think one of the things, Tom, that's hard for people in the U.S. and other developed countries to wrap their minds around is the context. That
Right.
$50 could have such a huge outsized impact that echoes for years to come.
Right.
Whereas here in the U.S., $50, that's a per diem for lunch and dinner when you're traveling and eating at a stinking Denny's or a Chili's or someplace like that. You're not even doing anything fancy.
Right.
It's the middle of the road, and that's gone in a meal or a day. And so it's really hard to understand, well, how does that make a difference? But it's not just the dollars. The dollars are fuel, lighter fluid that you put on the wood, but the wood are these ideas and these desires, like you said. What's amazing to me, and maybe someone would criticize me for saying this, but I believed it. I want to say for my whole life. Number one, don't ever mess with mom. A mom who's dedicated to her kids and giving them a better life and bringing them up right and providing for them, dedicated to her family, is amazing because they do so much that we will never understand until much later in life, whether we're a son or a daughter, whether we're a brother, whether we're a husband. We don't understand until much later in life. We look back and how did all this get done? Wow, she was the dynamo that got this done. And imagine that energy, that innovation, that thought, that care and concern put into, I'm going to build something with durability to give a better life for me and my family.
Yeah.
And then maybe they'll take that over, and maybe they'll take these lessons and carry it forward, and that will echo down through years and generations. And that's powerful
Yeah.
because it's, to your point, it's not about, hey, let me lift you out of the ditch. It's about, hey, I'll help you get out of the ditch, but while we're at it, let's talk about fixing this road and giving you a better car to get down it and how you can do this, and then you don't need me anymore because,
Right.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm home. I'm happy to help and happy to do things, but I don't want to be overbuilding the roads and the cars. I'd rather the people there do it, because that's going to make everything so much better for their
Well,
community. And that's really the goal, right? If you build up the individual, you build up everything.
right. To your point about how a little bit of money makes a difference. I mean, we tell people your donation, $50, $100, will fund a loan, and that loan is going to maybe it's a 6-month loan, maybe it's an 8-month loan. It's going to get paid back. It enters a revolving loan fund. That money gets loaned out again. So that donation that you make to us not only changes potentially the lives of that first loan recipient, but it echoes then again and again into the future as that money is paid back and relent and paid back and relent. And as you mentioned earlier, in both 2023 and 2024, we had 100% repayment rates because of the structure, because of this peer support, peer accountability structure that we require the partners to use. I will tell you and the listeners, 2025, we will not have 100% repayment rate. Darn Dominican Republic government took to sending Haitians back across the border to Haiti, and a number of our loan recipients were very poor Haitians. And so same issues that we have with deportations here in this country are also being, sort of reflected in other countries. And we told our partners, you can't, I mean, if somebody's deported, that loan is lost, right? I mean, it is, it's a function of the system. Sometimes
it's a force majeure.
Right. It's just nothing you could have done to prepare yourself. So,
let me ask you this, Tom, because I think it's important. What's next? What's coming up for WorldWise Microfinance? What's next in your evolution? Because you're a nonprofit right now, but what's coming down the pipe?
So we're in the process of a transition. So I taught at the university for 25 years, retired in 2019, had started WorldWise Microfinance while I was at the university. When I retired, really took on a much larger role in just day-to-day operations. And consequently, we've expanded quickly into 3 countries in Africa, and there are a number of other potentials on the board right now. But I told the board that we have a 3-year transition period. By the end of 2027, I want to step away, and we need to have funding in place to hire an executive director. Currently, we're an all-volunteer organization, so the transition from all-volunteer to a more traditional 501c3, more traditional nonprofit, where you actually pay people to do work, is where we're headed over the next 3 years. Now, that means are targeting groups that we haven't targeted in the past. We're 100% donor funded at this point. So we're targeting foundations, we're targeting corporations, we're targeting large high net worth individuals to help with that transition. But that'll be the big challenge for us as we grow up as an organization, going from an all volunteer organization to one that's sustainable over time.
Well, I think it's fantastic. I think the evolution you're on and the path is incredible, and that mission is worthwhile, and I really admire it. So, Tom, if this resonates with someone who listens and they want to learn more or get involved, maybe become a donor, maybe volunteer services, maybe just knowing more, what's the best way for folks to find WorldWise Microfinance, to find you and get in touch?
So the best way is to go to our website. We want to drive everybody to our website, and it's simply worldwisemicrofinance.org. There you can donate, you can volunteer, you can find out more about what we're doing, updates on the various countries that we're in. And if you want to reach out just to me, it would be just tom@worldwisemicrofinance.org, and I'm happy to answer any questions or begin a conversation about whatever that relationship would look like as we move forward.
Fantastic, Tom. I really appreciate you being on, and you got my respect, my admiration for what you're doing. I know A, it's not easy, but B, it's one of those things you can definitely attach the the saying too that if it's worthwhile, it won't be easy.
Right.
It's worth doing because it's hard and because of its impact and the value it delivers to people who you or me or whoever we may never meet, but
No, right.
the
Yeah.
impact in their lives can be profound.
Yeah. And it embodies that, that biblical notion, teach a person to fish and you're going to, make a difference in their lives, as opposed to giving a person a fish that'll help them eat that one meal. So what we're
Yeah.
doing is teaching people to fish. So
That is something I can get behind. Tom, thanks so much for joining me today.
thank you for the opportunity.